Across deserts, jungles, and coastlines, stone cities still stand, silent, roofless, unfinished, while the people who built them are gone. Streets end in sand, temples split open to the sky, and palaces sit empty as if the lights were turned off midday. The Minoans ruled the sea, then abandoned their painted halls. The Indus cities kept perfect order, then emptied without battle. The Maya raised pyramids above the trees, then walked away. Empires like Aksum shaped trade routes, then faded from maps. Somewhere beneath ash, vines, and dust, the final moments are still waiting to be found.
The story of lost civilizations is one that transcends time, inviting us to peer into the unknown and wonder how entire societies, once thriving and powerful, vanished without a trace. Across history, many cultures have risen to great heights, building monumental cities, creating intricate systems of governance, and advancing in art, science, and trade. Yet, just as quickly as they rose, they seem to fall, often disappearing so abruptly that even the most sophisticated scholars are left with little more than theories and speculation. This mystery is a compelling one, not only because of the profound questions it raises about the past, but because it speaks to a deeper, almost existential fear. What if the very things that define us, that give us identity and purpose, could just disappear? It's as if these civilizations, which once seemed indomitable, were swallowed by time, leaving behind only fragments and echoes of their existence. Sometimes, the mystery lies in the fact that we don't know why they vanished or how it happened. Other times, we have pieces of the puzzle, but the picture still remains elusive. Some of the world's most advanced and successful civilizations fell so suddenly that their disappearance has become the subject of myth, legend, and endless academic inquiry. The Minoans, who once dominated the Aegean, left behind not only beautiful art and architecture, but also a profound mystery surrounding their disappearance. The Maya, with their sophisticated calendars and astronomical knowledge, abandoned their great cities in the southern lowlands, leaving no definitive reason behind their fall. The Indus Valley, with its meticulously planned cities and unparalleled urban engineering, seemed to fade away without a trace, while the vast kingdom of Aksum, once a major power in Africa, also became a shadow of its former self. Each of these civilizations, and countless others, poses a unique mystery, a question about the forces that can erase the footprints of humanity's greatest achievements. How is it that societies so advanced and well-established could simply cease to exist, leaving behind only ruins and unanswered questions? Were the hidden forces at play, the subtle shifts in the environment, the unexpected encounters with foreign powers, or perhaps the internal struggles that lead to their sudden collapse? We often look to history for answers, hoping to make sense of these disappearances, yet so much of the story remains concealed. The records of these civilizations, if they existed at all, are sparse, incomplete, or lost altogether. Their written language may remain undeciphered, their artifacts scattered or buried beneath centuries of earth and stone. And in some cases, like the Maya or the ancestral Puebloans, there may not have been a single cataclysmic event that triggered their collapse, but rather a slow unraveling, a gradual erosion of the very systems that had once held them together. As we embark on this journey through time, we will explore the lives and eventual disappearances of these enigmatic peoples. We will look at the evidence that remains, the crumbling ruins, the abandoned cities, the empty temples, and seek to unravel the mysteries of their vanishing. Was it nature itself that struck them down? Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, or droughts? Or was it the consequence of human ambition, war, and conflict? Perhaps it was a combination of both, a perfect storm of environmental and social upheaval that led to their eventual downfall. But these questions are not just academic. They resonate with us on a personal level. We live in a world where civilizations are still rising and falling, and we often wonder what might cause our own society to crumble. Are there warning signs we should heed? Can we learn from the mistakes of the past and avoid the fate of those who disappeared before us? This documentary will not provide easy answers, because the disappearance of civilization is rarely the result of a single event. It is a complex web of factors, geopolitical, environmental, and cultural, that together weave the tapestry of civilization's rise and fall. We will examine these factors closely, diving into the various theories and stories that surround the most mysterious of these lost civilizations. As we explore these vanished worlds, we will see that the threads connecting these cultures to our own are not as far removed as they might seem. In the end, the stories of these civilizations, whether lost to the sands of time or forgotten by history, offer valuable insights into the fragility of human achievement. They remind us that even the most powerful empires, once thought invincible, are subject to forces beyond their control. The rise and fall of civilizations may follow a cyclical pattern, but it is often a pattern that is difficult to predict even when all the signs are right before us. These lost civilizations invite us to wonder about the mysteries that may lie just beneath the surface of the world we know. Could there be hidden cities buried beneath the jungle canopy? Ancient texts waiting to be deciphered, revealing forgotten knowledge? Perhaps we have only begun to uncover the extent of human history, and the story of the world's greatest civilizations is far more mysterious and complex than we ever imagined. Through this exploration, we seek not only to understand the past, but also to gain a deeper appreciation for the fleeting nature of human achievement. We are, all of us, part of a long chain of history that stretches back thousands of years. The civilizations that vanished before us are echoes of a time long past, yet their stories still speak to us across the ages. They remind us of both our potential and our vulnerability, of the heights we can reach and the depths to which we may fall. By diving deep into the mysteries of these lost worlds, we hope to gain a better understanding of the forces that shaped them, the choices that led to their downfall, and perhaps even some clues about how we might avoid a similar fate. For in the end, the story of these vanished civilizations is not just a tale of the past. It is a reflection of our own future, of the legacies we leave behind, and the mysteries that will continue to intrigue and fascinate those who come after us. So, let us embark on this journey through time, exploring the shocking and mysterious disappearances of some of the world's greatest civilizations. As we uncover their stories, we will find that the past, though shrouded in mystery, still has much to teach us about the present and the future. The Minoan civilization, once the crown jewel of the ancient Mediterranean, flourished on the island of Crete around 2000 BC. For centuries, this advanced society dominated the Aegean Sea, its influence stretching across vast territories. The Minoans were not just remarkable for their impressive maritime prowess, which enabled them to build a trading empire spanning from Egypt to the coast of modern-day Turkey, but also for their profound contributions to art, architecture, and culture. The palaces of Knossos, with their sprawling complexes, colorful frescoes, and sophisticated plumbing systems, remain one of the most iconic legacies of this enigmatic civilization. The Minoans were not just builders of cities, but creators of a world in which art, religion, and daily life intersected in ways that many later civilizations would come to admire. However, despite their remarkable achievements, the Minoans are known for something else, an unexplained and abrupt disappearance. By around 1450 BCE, the Minoan civilization, which had been thriving for centuries, seemed to vanish almost overnight. The grand palaces were abandoned, the art and culture that had once flourished faded into obscurity, and the civilization's intricate network of trade routes disintegrated. The mysterious end of the Minoans has been the subject of endless speculation and debate, with scholars and historians offering various theories to explain their downfall. What is particularly strange about this disappearance is that there was no single catastrophic event or recorded invasion that could account for such a sudden collapse. Instead, it is as if the Minoans, with all their grandeur and sophistication, simply faded away, leaving behind a legacy shrouded in mystery. One of the most widely accepted theories concerning the Minoan fall is the eruption of the Thera volcano, located on the island of Santorini, just north of Crete. The eruption, which occurred around 1600 BCE, is believed to have been one of the most powerful volcanic events in recorded history. The explosion would have sent a massive shockwave through the Aegean Sea, and the resulting tsunamis could have devastated coastal settlements on Crete. In addition, the ash cloud would have caused widespread damage to crops, contaminated water sources, and made the region inhospitable for years to come. The eruption's timing, shortly before the Minoan collapse, has led many scholars to theorize that this natural disaster may have been the tipping point that led to the decline of the Minoan civilization. However, there are several aspects of this theory that do not fully explain the abruptness of the Minoan disappearance. While the eruption of Thera likely caused widespread damage, archaeological evidence suggests that the Minoans were able to recover to some extent in the years following the eruption. The palaces at Knossos, for example, show signs of having been rebuilt or repaired, indicating that the Minoans were not entirely wiped out by the event. Yet, despite these efforts to recover, the civilization never regained its former glory. The palaces were abandoned, and the great cities of Crete fell into decline. This raises the question: was it the eruption alone that caused the Minoans to vanish, or was there something else at play? Another possible explanation for the fall of the Minoans is the invasion by the Mycenaeans, a more militaristic civilization that emerged on the Greek mainland around the same time. The Mycenaeans were known for their powerful armies and their ability to conquer and dominate neighboring territories. Some scholars believe that the Mycenaeans may have taken advantage of the weakened Minoan state after the eruption of Thera, launching an invasion that ultimately led to the Minoans' downfall. The archaeological evidence of Mycenaean pottery and weaponry found in Minoan sites suggests that there may have been some form of Mycenaean influence on Crete during this period. However, there is little direct evidence to support the idea that the Mycenaeans launched a full-scale invasion that led to the collapse of the Minoan civilization. It is possible that the Mycenaeans simply absorbed the Minoans into their own society, gradually taking control of the region without a major battle or conflict. A more subtle theory suggests that internal factors, such as political instability or social upheaval, may have played a significant role in the Minoan decline. The Minoans were known for their complex and decentralized political system, with various city-states and palace complexes scattered across Crete. This lack of centralized control may have made the civilization vulnerable to internal divisions, especially in the face of external pressures such as natural disasters and shifting trade routes. It is possible that the Minoans experienced a period of internal strife, which weakened their ability to defend themselves against external threats and led to the abandonment of their palaces and cities. Additionally, there is the question of the Minoans' relationship with their surrounding neighbors, particularly the Egyptians. The Minoans were known to have traded extensively with Egypt, and there are records of Minoan goods being found in Egyptian tombs. However, by the time of the Minoan decline, Egypt was undergoing its own period of instability, and it is possible that the disruption of trade routes and diplomatic ties played a role in the Minoans' downfall. The loss of their trading network would have had severe economic consequences, especially for a civilization that relied heavily on trade for its prosperity. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Minoan civilization is its art and religion, both of which provide clues to the culture's values and way of life. The Minoans were known for their vibrant frescoes, which depicted scenes of everyday life, nature, and religious rituals. These works of art reveal a society that valued beauty, creativity, and harmony with nature. The Minoans also worshipped a number of deities, including a mother goddess, whose presence was reflected in the many shrines and cultic practices found throughout Crete. Some scholars believe that the decline of the Minoans may have been linked to a shift in religious beliefs, as the once dominant goddess cult may have given way to the more warlike and patriarchal deities of the Mycenaeans or other nearby cultures. Despite the various theories, one thing remains clear: the Minoans were not wiped out in a single catastrophic event. Instead, their civilization appears to have suffered a gradual decline, triggered by a combination of factors, both internal and external. The eruption of Thera may have been a key factor, but it was likely not the sole cause. The Minoans were a complex society, and their fall was likely the result of a series of interrelated events that caused their once thriving culture to crumble. What is truly mysterious about the Minoans is not just the fact of their disappearance, but the lack of clear answers. No single explanation accounts for the sudden fall of this remarkable civilization, and it is this ambiguity that continues to captivate the imaginations of historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts alike. The Minoans were a society ahead of their time, and their legacy endures in the art, architecture, and ideas they left behind. Yet their disappearance remains one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. What happened to the Minoans? Was it the wrath of nature, the might of invaders, or the fragility of their own social structure that led to their fall? As with so many other lost civilizations, the answers may remain just out of reach, leaving us to wonder what might have been, and what we can learn from the sudden and mysterious disappearance of the Minoan civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization, one of the world's earliest urban cultures, flourished between 3300 and 1300 BCE in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. Spanning an area of over 1 million square kilometers, it was one of the largest ancient civilizations, known for its well-planned cities, advanced drainage systems, and remarkable achievements in metallurgy, trade, and craftwork. The cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa stand as testaments to the sophistication of the civilization, featuring grid-like streets, multi-story homes, and an intricate network of public baths and sanitation facilities that were centuries ahead of their time. Yet, despite its accomplishments, the Indus Valley Civilization mysteriously collapsed, and its cities were abandoned long before the arrival of the Aryans, whose migration is often considered the start of new developments in South Asia. The mystery of the Indus Valley's disappearance is profound because, unlike many other ancient civilizations, there are no clear written records or dramatic causes, such as invasions or large-scale warfare, that explain the civilization's sudden end. For centuries, the cause of its collapse remained one of the great enigmas of ancient history. Unlike the well-documented fall of Rome or the sudden demise of the Minoans, the disappearance of the Indus Valley Civilization seems almost quiet. The evidence left behind is sparse, with the abandoned cities offering few clues as to the reasons for their abandonment. And although many theories abound, there is no definitive explanation that accounts for the end of this once great civilization. One theory that has garnered significant attention is the possibility of climate change. Evidence from geological studies and paleoclimatic data suggests that during the time of the Indus Valley Civilization's decline, the region underwent a dramatic shift in climate. Archaeological findings indicate that the region experienced a series of prolonged droughts, which would have drastically reduced the available water supply for agriculture. The civilization was heavily reliant on the Indus River, and any significant alteration in its flow, whether due to changing rainfall patterns or the shifting of river channels, could have led to widespread agricultural collapse. If the Indus River and its tributaries were no longer able to support the population's needs, food shortages would have followed, placing immense strain on the civilization's social and economic systems. The evidence of such a climate-induced crisis can be seen in the archaeological layers at sites like Mohenjo-daro, where evidence of the drying up of rivers and the desertification of formerly fertile lands has been uncovered. In addition, there are indications of the river's shifting course. Rivers that were once navigable became difficult or impossible to traverse. The collapse of the agricultural economy would have been catastrophic for a society that depended on it for sustenance, trade, and social structure. Without reliable crops, the delicate balance of urban life would have been disrupted. In turn, this could have led to the abandonment of cities and the disintegration of the civilization's centralized power. Another possibility is the decline in trade networks. The Indus Valley Civilization was a major trading power in its time, with connections extending to Mesopotamia, the Persian Gulf, and regions as far as Central Asia. The civilization's cities, particularly Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, were key hubs in this vast trade network. They exchanged goods such as cotton, precious metals, beads, and pottery. However, if the decline in agriculture caused by climate change disrupted the local economy, it is likely that the Indus Valley's trade routes would have suffered as well. The cities, once vibrant and bustling with activity, would have gradually fallen into decline as trade and economic stability diminished. With trade collapsing, the social fabric of the civilization may have unraveled as well. The decline of trade could have also been exacerbated by the possible environmental changes in the surrounding regions. For instance, archaeological evidence suggests that by the time the Indus Valley civilization started to decline, there were significant shifts in the ecosystems of neighboring regions. The depletion of natural resources, coupled with environmental stresses like soil erosion and changing weather patterns, would have further strained the civilization's agricultural and economic base. In this scenario, the Indus Valley civilization might have faced an existential crisis, unable to grow enough food, unable to maintain trade, and unable to meet the needs of its people. The social, economic, and political systems that had once supported it may have started to falter, leading to the eventual abandonment of cities. Another compelling theory involves the internal collapse of the Indus Valley's complex social and political systems. The cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were highly advanced, but they were also large, with intricate governance and social hierarchies. Without a clear central ruler or political authority, the civilization may have been vulnerable to internal divisions or power struggles. We see evidence of some form of social organization through the planning of the cities and the uniformity of weights and measures, which suggest a centralized administration. But this very centralization could have made the civilization brittle, especially if it faced disruptions in trade, agriculture, or water supplies. A lack of flexibility in responding to environmental changes or shifts in trade might have led to political infighting and fragmentation. Without strong leadership or social cohesion, the cities would have been unable to cope with the challenges they faced, and the civilization could have disintegrated from within. While these environmental and social factors provide plausible explanations for the collapse of the Indus Valley, one of the most fascinating aspects of this mystery is the apparent lack of violence or conflict that typically accompanies the downfall of other civilizations. Unlike the Minoans or the Maya, whose collapses are often attributed to warfare or invasion, the Indus Valley civilization appears to have simply faded away. The ruins of Mohenjo-daro, for example, show no signs of violent destruction or large-scale military conflict. There are no records of invasions by foreign enemies or evidence of warfare within the civilization itself. This absence of conflict is especially striking given the level of sophistication the civilization had attained. It suggests that the collapse of the Indus Valley was likely not the result of an external force, but rather an internal unraveling caused by environmental, economic, and social stresses. Moreover, there is no record of a sudden and dramatic collapse. The cities were abandoned gradually, with evidence showing that their decline was a slow and steady process, rather than the result of a single, catastrophic event. This slow dissolution of the Indus Valley civilization is in stark contrast to the more dramatic falls of other ancient empires, where destruction and chaos often marked the end. In the case of the Indus Valley, the abandonment seems almost peaceful, as if the population simply dispersed and moved on to other areas. Over time, the cities that had once thrived were reclaimed by nature. Their streets and buildings slowly eroded and buried under layers of soil and sediment. The fact that no definitive explanation has emerged for the collapse of the Indus Valley civilization only adds to its mystery. Was it the environment, internal political collapse, economic failure, or perhaps a combination of all these factors? The reality is that the answer may never be fully understood, and the true cause of its disappearance may remain lost to history. Yet, in a way, this very mystery is what makes the story of the Indus Valley civilization so compelling. It serves as a reminder that even the most sophisticated and powerful societies can fall, often without warning and without a clear cause. The lesson from the Indus Valley is one of humility. Civilizations, no matter how advanced or prosperous, are vulnerable to forces beyond their control. And sometimes their fall is quiet, slow, and imperceptible, leaving only the ghosts of once great cities behind to wonder what might have been. The collapse of the Indus Valley civilization stands as a poignant reminder that history is filled with mysteries, stories that, for all their complexity, remain unfinished. We are left with the ruins and the unanswered questions, and the civilization that once flourished is now only a shadow, its story untold in the ways we wish it could be. The Aztec Empire, which flourished in central Mexico from the 14th century until its sudden collapse in the early 16th century, is one of history's most remarkable and enigmatic civilizations. At its peak, the Aztecs controlled an empire that stretched across much of Mesoamerica, boasting a highly organized society, impressive architectural achievements, and a powerful military. They built grand cities such as Tenochtitlan, the capital, which was situated on an island in Lake Texcoco and was one of the largest cities in the world at the time. Tenochtitlan was a marvel of urban planning, with floating gardens, temples, markets, and causeways, all laid out with meticulous precision. The Aztecs were also known for their sophisticated agriculture, engineering feats, and a vibrant culture that blended art, music, and religion in ways that left a lasting imprint on the world. Yet, for all their remarkable achievements, the Aztecs were also a civilization marked by a dark and violent side. Central to their culture was the practice of human sacrifice, which was believed to appease the gods and ensure the survival of the universe. This ritualistic violence, alongside their military conquests and territorial expansion, made the Aztecs both feared and admired throughout Mesoamerica. But despite their military might and cultural advancements, the Aztec Empire fell almost as swiftly as it had risen, and in a way that was as mysterious as it was shocking. In 1519, the Aztecs were confronted with a threat that no one had anticipated: the arrival of Spanish conquistadors led by Hernán Cortés. While the fall of the Aztec Empire is often attributed to this encounter, the story is far more complex than a simple case of European superiority. What is truly remarkable about the Aztec collapse is not just the suddenness of the Spanish conquest, but the rapidity with which an empire that had seemed invincible crumbled under pressure. The Aztecs, who had once been masters of warfare and diplomacy, were undone in just a few short years by a combination of external forces and internal vulnerabilities. The contrast between their apparent strength and their sudden downfall is a story that has fascinated historians for centuries. When Hernán Cortés and his men arrived on the shores of Mexico in 1519, they were initially met with curiosity and awe by the Aztec emperor, Moctezuma II. According to some accounts, Moctezuma believed that Cortés and his men were the returning gods of Aztec prophecy. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, predicted to return from the east. Whether this belief was truly held by Moctezuma, or whether it was a misinterpretation by the Spanish, is still debated, but the idea that the Aztecs were willing to entertain the notion that the Spanish were divine beings shows a deep cultural complexity. Moctezuma, perhaps eager to understand this strange arrival, allowed Cortés and his men to enter Tenochtitlan peacefully. However, what began as an exchange of curiosity quickly turned hostile. Cortés, ambitious and opportunistic, took advantage of the situation, forming alliances with rival groups such as the Tlaxcalans, who had long been enemies of the Aztecs. These alliances would prove crucial, as they provided Cortés with thousands of additional warriors to take on the mighty Aztec forces. The power of these alliances cannot be overstated. Without the support of indigenous groups who hated the Aztecs for their oppressive tribute system, the Spanish might have been unable to overcome the Aztec military. In addition to the Spanish military prowess, another crucial factor in the Aztec downfall was the arrival of European diseases, particularly smallpox. The Aztecs had no immunity to the diseases brought by the Spanish, and within months of their arrival, an epidemic broke out in Tenochtitlan, causing devastating loss of life. Smallpox, along with other diseases such as measles and influenza, decimated the population, leaving the Aztec army weakened and vulnerable. This was a key factor that shifted the balance of power. While the Spanish were outnumbered and often faced fierce resistance, the disease spread faster than the Aztec defenders could react. Entire sections of the population were wiped out, and the survival of the Aztec people was thrown into turmoil. The Aztecs, however, did not give up easily. Even as their city was ravaged by disease and their warriors suffered heavy casualties, the Aztecs fought back. The siege of Tenochtitlan is one of the most intense and dramatic episodes of the conquest. The Spanish, along with their indigenous allies, began to encircle the city, cutting off food supplies and making it increasingly difficult for the Aztecs to defend themselves. After several months of fierce fighting, the Spanish launched a final assault, overwhelming the weakened Aztec forces. In 1521, Tenochtitlan fell, marking the end of the Aztec Empire. While the Spanish conquest is the most obvious factor in the collapse of the Aztec Empire, it is important to recognize that the Aztecs' fall was not simply the result of external invasion. There were several internal factors that weakened the empire long before the Spanish arrived. For one, the Aztec Empire was built on a foundation of conquest and tribute. The Aztecs had many enemies, and the tribute system they imposed on their subject peoples created widespread resentment. This resentment bubbled under the surface, and when the Spanish arrived, many of the Aztecs' enemies were eager to form alliances with the invaders. The constant military campaigns, the sacrifices, and the brutality of Aztec rule may have made the empire unstable and ripe for collapse. Another internal factor that contributed to the downfall of the Aztecs was the social and political instability that characterized Moctezuma's reign. Moctezuma II, though powerful, faced significant challenges from within his own empire. As the empire grew, maintaining control over its vast territories became increasingly difficult. Revolts and uprisings were common, and the strain of managing such a large, diverse empire may have contributed to internal divisions. Moctezuma, despite his position as the emperor, was not able to consolidate power in a way that could withstand external threats. His hesitation and failure to decisively deal with the Spanish led to his eventual capture and death at the hands of the conquistadors. His leadership, though significant, was marked by indecision at critical moments, and the empire's military might was insufficient to stave off the tide of invasion. The Spanish, with their advanced weaponry, military tactics, and, crucially, their alliances with discontented indigenous groups, overwhelmed the Aztec Empire. But what is remarkable about the Aztec fall is not just the defeat itself, but the speed with which it occurred. In a matter of months, an empire that had lasted for centuries crumbled under the weight of disease, division, and military onslaught. The rapid collapse of the Aztec Empire is both a testament to the power of the Spanish conquistadors and a reflection of the inherent vulnerabilities of the Aztec system. The fall of the Aztecs marks the end of one of the most powerful and sophisticated empires in the Americas, and their sudden collapse raises profound questions about the fragility of civilizations. How did an empire so powerful and advanced, capable of building grand cities and creating intricate systems of government, fall so quickly? Was it the Spanish? Was it disease? Or was it an inevitable consequence of the way the Aztecs had built their empire, through conquest and coercion? The collapse of the Aztec Empire is a stark reminder that even the mightiest civilizations can crumble, sometimes with little warning, when faced with forces they cannot control or anticipate. While the Aztec downfall is a tragic and violent chapter in history, it is also a story of resilience and resistance. The Aztecs fought to the very end, but in the end, the combination of disease, internal divisions, and the superior tactics of the Spanish proved insurmountable. The suddenness of the fall of the Aztec Empire continues to captivate and haunt us, offering a powerful lesson in the fragility of power and the unpredictable nature of history. The Aztecs may have vanished, but their legacy, through their art, architecture, and culture, still resonates, reminding us of the heights they reached and the abruptness of their fall. The Maya civilization, known for its awe-inspiring temples, intricate hieroglyphic script, and remarkable advancements in mathematics and astronomy, is one of the most fascinating and mysterious cultures of ancient Mesoamerica. Flourishing for over 1,000 years from around 2000 BCE until the Spanish conquest in the 16th century, the Maya developed one of the most sophisticated societies the world has ever known. The cities of the Maya, scattered across present-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, were centers of art, science, and religion, where towering pyramids rose above the jungle canopy and where astronomers mapped the movements of the stars with unparalleled precision. At the height of their civilization, the Maya were a powerful and thriving people, with complex political structures, a rich cultural heritage, and a deep understanding of the natural world. They developed advanced agricultural techniques, such as terracing and the use of raised fields, which allowed them to sustain large populations in areas of often challenging terrain. Their art, characterized by intricate carvings and vibrant murals, told the stories of gods, rulers, and everyday life, while their writing system, the Maya script, was one of the most sophisticated of its time. The Maya also made significant advancements in mathematics, creating a number system based on the concept of zero, and their astronomical knowledge was so advanced that they were able to calculate the movements of celestial bodies with remarkable accuracy. Yet, despite their many achievements, the Maya civilization experienced a mysterious and sudden decline that continues to baffle historians and archaeologists today. The so-called Maya collapse refers to the sudden abandonment of many of the civilization's major cities, particularly in the southern lowlands around the 9th century CE. Large, prosperous cities such as Tikal, Copan, and Palenque were abandoned seemingly overnight, and the once thriving Maya centers were left in ruins. What caused this sudden and unexplained disappearance of a civilization that had lasted for centuries? What were the factors that led to the abandonment of the great cities and the eventual fragmentation of Maya society? Theories about the collapse of the Maya civilization abound, but no single explanation has been universally accepted. One of the most widely discussed theories is that the Maya were victims of environmental collapse. The Maya relied heavily on agriculture to support their population, and many of the civilization's major cities were located in areas with limited access to water sources. As the population grew and the demand for food and water increased, the Maya may have overexploited the land and resources, leading to deforestation and soil degradation. Archaeological evidence shows that large areas of the Maya lowlands were cleared for agriculture, and as the trees were cut down, the soil became more vulnerable to erosion. This, in turn, may have led to crop failure and food shortages, putting immense pressure on the Maya population and contributing to the decline of their cities. Furthermore, a series of prolonged droughts during the 9th century could have exacerbated the environmental stress the Maya were already facing. Evidence from ice cores taken from glaciers in the region suggests that there was a significant decrease in rainfall during this period, which may have led to the drying up of rivers and other water sources that were vital to the Maya cities. Without reliable access to water, the Maya would have struggled to sustain their agricultural output, and the social and political structures that depended on a stable food supply would have begun to unravel. The drought theory, while compelling, does not explain the complete collapse of Maya civilization, as some cities in the northern lowlands continued to thrive even after the southern cities were abandoned. Another possible explanation for the collapse of the Maya civilization is political instability and internal conflict. The Maya civilization was not a unified empire, but rather a collection of city-states, each ruled by its own king or noble family. These city-states were often in competition with one another for resources, power, and territory, and this constant political tension could have led to war and instability. Evidence of warfare between different Maya cities is found in the archaeological record, with many sites showing signs of destruction for battles. As the population grew and resources became scarcer, the competition for land and food would have intensified, leading to increased conflict and political fragmentation. Some scholars argue that internal strife, coupled with external environmental pressures, could have caused the Maya civilization to fragment and collapse from within. Additionally, the Maya's complex religious beliefs and social structure may have played a role in their downfall. The Maya believed that the health of their society was intimately tied to the favor of the gods, and religious rituals were a central part of daily life. However, the Maya rulers, who were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people, may have miscalculated in their ability to appease the gods, especially during times of hardship. If the gods were believed to be displeased, this could have led to a loss of faith in the ruling class and destabilized society. There is evidence that some of the Maya rulers lost their power or were overthrown during the period leading up to the collapse, suggesting that internal religious and political upheaval may have contributed to the decline. While environmental factors, political instability, and religious crisis are all compelling explanations for the Maya collapse, some scholars suggest that the real cause may have been a combination of all these factors, working in tandem to weaken the civilization over time. The Maya were a resilient people, and their civilization lasted for centuries. But as the pressure on resources, political structures, and social systems mounted, their once thriving cities may have become unsustainable. This slow unraveling could explain why many of the cities were abandoned in the 9th century, while others continued to survive for several more centuries. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Maya collapse is the fact that the abandonment of the cities was not a single dramatic event, but rather a gradual process that unfolded over decades. Some cities, such as Tikal and Calakmul, seem to have been abandoned in a relatively short time, while others, like Chichen Itza, remained occupied for centuries after the southern lowlands were deserted. The Maya did not simply vanish overnight. Rather, their civilization underwent a slow transformation, with cities being abandoned, populations migrating, and the political structure fragmenting. This gradual decline is what makes the Maya collapse particularly mysterious. There is no single event that could explain the fall of one of the most advanced civilizations in the Americas. In the centuries following the collapse, the Maya civilization never truly disappeared. The descendants of the ancient Maya continued to live in the region, and Maya culture persisted in various forms, albeit in a more decentralized and fragmented manner. The northern Maya cities, such as Chichen Itza and Uxmal, continued to thrive until the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century. Even after the Spanish conquest, the Maya retained much of their culture and identity, and today, millions of Maya people continue to live in the region, preserving their ancient traditions and languages. The mystery of the Maya collapse remains one of the great puzzles of ancient history. While we have gained significant insight into the factors that may have contributed to the decline of the Maya civilization, no single explanation can account for the full scope of the collapse. It is likely that a combination of environmental, political, social, and religious factors caused the Maya to abandon their great cities and fragment into smaller, less centralized communities. The collapse of the Maya civilization is not a tale of destruction, but rather a story of transformation, a civilization that underwent a slow and gradual shift in the face of mounting challenges. Though the great cities of the Maya are no longer inhabited, the legacy of their achievements in art, science, and architecture endures, offering a window into one of the most fascinating and mysterious civilizations in history. The ancestral Puebloans, also known as the Anasazi, were a Native American culture that flourished in the southwestern United States from approximately 100 CE to 1600 CE. They are most famously known for their remarkable cliff dwellings and pueblos, which are some of the most iconic architectural achievements in pre-Columbian North America. Their civilization, which spanned the Four Corners region, where the states of Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah meet, was marked by a deep understanding of agriculture, astronomy, and social organization. Their ability to thrive in one of the most arid and challenging environments on Earth is a testament to their ingenuity and resilience. Yet, despite their successes and their lasting impact on the region, the ancestral Puebloans disappeared in a way that remains shrouded in mystery, leaving behind only their haunting ruins and unanswered questions. The rise of the ancestral Puebloans is a story of adaptation and innovation. Beginning around 100 CE, the early Puebloans began to shift from a nomadic lifestyle to a more settled existence, establishing permanent villages and developing agriculture as their primary means of subsistence. They cultivated maize, beans, and squash, which became the foundation of their diet. Over time, they built increasingly sophisticated dwellings, transitioning from simple pit houses to more complex structures made of adobe, stone, and wood. Their most famous architectural creations, the cliff dwellings at places like Cliff Palace and Mesa Verde, are stunning examples of their ability to integrate architecture with a natural landscape. These cliff dwellings, built into the steep faces of canyon walls, were not only impressive feats of engineering, but also strategic defensive structures designed to protect the inhabitants from external threats. The ancestral Puebloans also developed a sophisticated social and religious structure, which was deeply intertwined with their environment. They held the natural world in high regard and viewed their relationship with it as sacred. The sun, the moon, and the stars were central to their cosmology, and many of their buildings were aligned with celestial events, such as solstices and equinoxes. The ruins of Chaco Canyon, one of the most important centers of ancestral Puebloan culture, provide evidence of their advanced knowledge of astronomy. The Great House at Chaco Canyon, with its elaborate system of roads and ceremonial structures, served as a major center for trade, politics, and religious ceremonies. It was a hub that connected various Puebloan communities across the region, demonstrating the complex and far-reaching network of the ancestral Puebloans. However, by the late 12th century, something began to unravel in the lives of the ancestral Puebloans. Despite their ingenuity and apparent prosperity, many of their greatest centers, including Chaco Canyon, were abandoned by 1300 CE. The cliff dwellings, once bustling with life, stood empty. Entire villages were left behind, and the sophisticated systems of trade, agriculture, and governance that had once supported these communities disintegrated. What caused this sudden and dramatic shift? Why did the ancestral Puebloans abandon their impressive homes, their agricultural systems, and their thriving trade routes? Unlike other ancient civilizations that met their end through invasion, the ancestral Puebloans' disappearance seems to have been more gradual, almost as if their society simply began to unravel. One of the most widely discussed theories regarding the collapse of the ancestral Puebloans is environmental change. The Southwest is known for its harsh, arid climate, and the region where the Puebloans lived is especially vulnerable to drought. Archaeological evidence suggests that the climate during the late 12th and early 13th centuries became increasingly dry. This prolonged drought may have severely impacted the agriculture that was the foundation of ancestral Puebloan society. Maize, beans, and squash, all vital crops, are particularly sensitive to changes in water availability. If crops failed, it would have led to food shortages, social unrest, and mass migration. The drought theory is supported by evidence of tree ring patterns, which show that the late 12th century was a period of severe drought in the region. The lack of water would have stressed the agricultural systems of the ancestral Puebloans, whose entire way of life was dependent on irrigation and the cultivation of crops. As the land grew less productive, the ancestral Puebloans would have faced the harsh reality of dwindling resources. This would have forced many to abandon their homes and migrate in search of more fertile land or reliable water sources. But environmental change alone does not fully explain the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans. Many scholars argue that social and political factors must have also played a role. The complex social structures and trade networks that once held the Puebloan society together began to break down under pressure. As resources became scarcer, competition for water and fertile land may have led to conflicts between communities. The once cohesive trading system, which had linked the ancestral Puebloans to distant cultures, would have been disrupted as communities fragmented and dispersed. The collapse of Chaco Canyon, once the center of political and religious power for the Puebloans, is seen as a symbol of this disintegration. As the central authority weakened, so did the unity of the larger network of settlements. The collapse of Chaco Canyon itself is a fascinating case study. Archaeological evidence suggests that the great houses and ceremonial centers of Chaco Canyon were abandoned long before the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century. There is evidence of violent conflict in the region, with some structures showing signs of burning and destruction. It is possible that internal strife, coupled with the pressures of environmental change, led to the eventual downfall of Chaco Canyon as a political and ceremonial center. This decentralization may have led to a further scattering of the ancestral Puebloans, as smaller communities move away from the now depleted resources of the great centers. While drought and social strife were certainly contributing factors, there may have been additional cultural elements at play that caused the ancestral Puebloans to abandon their cities. Many indigenous cultures in the Americas had deep spiritual connections to their land and their way of life. It is possible that the ancestral Puebloans' spiritual beliefs were shaken by the environmental changes they were experiencing. The very forces they had once believed to be in their control, nature, water, and the fertility of the land, were now unyielding. This loss of control, combined with the collapse of their agricultural systems, could have led to a spiritual and cultural crisis, which in turn contributed to their abandonment of traditional ways of life. The final departure of the ancestral Puebloans from their grand cliff dwellings and settlements was not a sudden, catastrophic event, but rather a slow and steady migration away from the traditional heartlands. It was a gradual shift, where communities moved to new areas, sought out new sources of water, and adapted to the changing environment. These migrations did not necessarily signal the end of the Puebloan culture, but they did mark the end of one of the most impressive expressions of that culture. The descendants of the ancestral Puebloans, now known as the Hopi, Zuni, and other Pueblo tribes, continue to live in the region today, preserving many of the traditions and cultural practices of their ancestors. Despite the many theories, the full explanation for the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans remains elusive. What is clear is that their disappearance was not due to any single factor, but rather a complex interplay of environmental, social, and cultural pressures. The combination of a changing climate, competition for resources, internal conflict, and a crisis of belief and social structure led to the abandonment of their great cities and the eventual dispersal of their population. The legacy of the ancestral Puebloans endures in the ruins they left behind. Cliff dwellings, kivas, and pottery that continue to captivate the imagination of modern-day archaeologists and visitors. Their achievements in architecture, agriculture, and art remain a testament to their ingenuity and resilience. While their civilization may have vanished from the landscape, their descendants live on, and the mysteries of their disappearance continue to provoke questions that we may never fully answer. Their story is a reminder that even the most advanced and resilient cultures can face forces beyond their control, and that the past is never as clear-cut as it may seem. The Kingdom of Aksum, once a powerful and influential empire in northeastern Africa, remains one of history's most fascinating yet mysterious civilizations. Flourishing between approximately 100 CE and 940 CE, Aksum was located in what is today northern Ethiopia and Eritrea. At its height, the Kingdom of Aksum was one of the great powers of the ancient world, rivaling empires such as Rome, Persia, and China. Known for its remarkable achievements in architecture, trade, and religion, Aksum's rise and subsequent fall remain shrouded in mystery, leaving behind impressive remnants of its once glorious past, including towering stelae, grand palaces, and early Christian churches. The Aksumites were masters of commerce, with a vast trading network that spanned across the Red Sea, the Arabian Peninsula, and even as far as India and the Mediterranean. Aksum's position as a trading hub allowed it to accumulate immense wealth, which was then funneled into the construction of monumental structures, such as the famous stelae, massive obelisks carved from single pieces of stone. These towering pillars were often used to mark royal tombs, and their grandeur and size speak to the advanced engineering and craftsmanship of the Aksumite people. The most famous of these stelae, the Great Stele of Aksum, still stands today as a testament to the power and influence of the kingdom. Aksum's wealth was not only derived from trade in luxury goods like ivory, gold, and frankincense, but also from its control over the important port city of Adulis, which served as the gateway for commerce with both the Roman and Persian empires. The Aksumites were also known for their remarkable innovations in agriculture. They developed an advanced system of terraced farming, which allowed them to cultivate crops on the rugged, mountainous terrain of the Ethiopian highlands. This agricultural prowess, combined with a centralized, highly organized society, helped sustain a population that was able to build and maintain the impressive cities of Aksum, which served as both a political and religious center. The kingdom's capital, also called Aksum, became one of the most prosperous cities of the ancient world, boasting not only grand palaces and temples, but also a sophisticated infrastructure of roads and irrigation systems that allowed the kingdom to flourish for centuries. In addition to their advancements in trade and agriculture, the Aksumites were pioneers in religion. Around the 4th century CE, King Izana, one of the most significant rulers in Aksumite history, converted to Christianity, making Aksum one of the first kingdoms in the world to officially adopt Christianity as the state religion. This move was not only a monumental religious shift, but also a strategic political decision, as it aligned Aksum with the powerful Christian Roman Empire. The conversion of King Izana had lasting effects on the kingdom, as Aksum became a center of early Christian thought in Africa, and the construction of churches and monasteries soon followed. The kingdom of Aksum became the birthplace of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which remains one of the oldest Christian denominations in the world today. Yet, despite its impressive achievements and dominant position in the ancient world, the kingdom of Aksum mysteriously declined and eventually fell into obscurity. By the 7th century, Aksum had begun to experience a series of challenges, both internal and external, that would lead to its gradual disintegration. The factors behind the collapse of Aksum are complex and multifaceted, but several key factors stand out in explaining this once thriving empire's downfall. One of the most significant factors contributing to the decline of the kingdom of Aksum was the rise of Islam in the 7th century. As Islam spread rapidly across the Arabian Peninsula, it soon reached the Red Sea and the eastern coast of Africa. The Muslim conquests of the 7th and 8th centuries created a shift in the regional power dynamics, particularly with the establishment of the Islamic caliphates. Aksum, once a dominant trade power in the Red Sea, found itself increasingly isolated as Muslim traders and cities took control of the lucrative maritime trade routes that once passed through its ports. The loss of access to these key trade routes severely impacted Aksum's economy, as it had relied heavily on trade with the Mediterranean world, India, and Arabia for its wealth. The growing influence of Muslim powers in the region made it difficult for Aksum to maintain its economic prosperity and political influence. In addition to the external pressure from Islamic expansion, the kingdom of Aksum also faced internal challenges that contributed to its decline. The once centralized political system began to fragment as the kingdom's power became more decentralized. This fragmentation was particularly evident in the later years of Aksum's history, when regional rulers gained more autonomy and the kingdom's control over its vast territory weakened. The empire's borders became more porous, and as local rulers gained power, the unity that had once defined the Aksumite state began to erode. Environmental factors, such as droughts and changes in climate, also played a role in the decline of the Aksumite kingdom. Evidence suggests that during the later years of the kingdom's history, the region suffered from a series of prolonged droughts, which would have placed immense pressure on agriculture and the kingdom's ability to feed its population. The agricultural systems that had once supported the Aksumites began to falter, and this, combined with the weakening of trade, created a perfect storm for the empire's collapse. Another possible factor in the decline of Aksum was the gradual shift in religious and cultural practices. While the conversion to Christianity had initially strengthened the kingdom's political and religious ties with the Roman Empire, it also may have led to a degree of cultural isolation. As Islam spread through the region and the rest of Africa, Aksum remained largely disconnected from the rest of the continent in terms of trade and cultural exchange. This isolation, combined with the internal political fragmentation and environmental challenges, likely contributed to the slow decline of the once great empire. By the 10th century, Aksum had largely fallen into obscurity. Its grand cities, once filled with the splendor of imperial architecture and thriving trade, were abandoned. The capital, Aksum, fell into ruin, and the once great kingdom was reduced to a shadow of its former self. The exact timing of the collapse remains unclear, but by the 940s, the kingdom was no longer a significant political force in the region. The remnants of Aksum's grandeur, its stelae, churches, and palaces, stood as silent reminders of a once mighty empire that had been swallowed by time and the forces of history. Despite the decline of the kingdom of Aksum, its legacy remains significant. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which was founded during the Aksumite period, continues to thrive to this day and remains one of the oldest Christian denominations in the world. Additionally, the Aksumite script and the architectural innovations of the kingdom's engineers have left a lasting impact on the region. The stelae of Aksum, which still stand as symbols of the kingdom's past power and influence, continue to fascinate scholars and tourists alike. The kingdom's role in early Christianity in Africa, its trade network, and its impressive architecture have ensured that the memory of Aksum endures in the cultural and historical consciousness of Ethiopia and the surrounding region. The fall of Aksum is a poignant reminder that even the most powerful civilizations can fade into history. The causes of its decline, ranging from the rise of Islam to environmental challenges, internal fragmentation, and political instability, highlight the fragility of even the most prosperous empires. While the kingdom of Aksum may no longer exist in its former glory, its legacy continues to shape the culture, religion, and identity of the Horn of Africa, and its mysterious disappearance remains one of the most captivating puzzles of the ancient world. The Hittites, one of the most powerful and enigmatic civilizations of the ancient Near East, flourished for centuries before vanishing from history in a manner that still baffles historians. Originating in the Anatolian Plateau in modern-day Turkey, the Hittite Empire reached its zenith around the 14th century BCE, stretching across a vast territory that included parts of modern-day Syria, Iraq, and Iran. Renowned for their military prowess, sophisticated governance, and mastery of ironworking, the Hittites were once a dominant force in the ancient world. Yet, by the end of the 12th century BCE, the Hittite Empire had mysteriously collapsed, and the once thriving civilization was lost to history. The causes of the Hittite collapse remain shrouded in mystery, as no clear answer has emerged to explain the sudden fall of this once great empire. The rise of the Hittites is marked by their early settlement in the Anatolian region, where they gradually established a powerful kingdom centered around their capital, Hattusa. Over time, the Hittites expanded their influence across Anatolia and into the fertile lands of the northern Levant. The Hittite military was renowned for its effectiveness, particularly in the use of chariots, which gave them a significant advantage over their enemies. The Hittites were able to conquer neighboring regions and establish a vast empire, including territories that once belonged to the powerful Egyptian and Assyrian empires. Their military campaigns were often marked by their skillful diplomacy, alliances, and complex strategies, which allowed them to maintain control over an extensive and diverse territory. One of the defining features of Hittite society was its sophisticated legal system. The Hittites developed one of the earliest known codes of law, which was remarkably advanced for its time. These laws were carved into stone tablets and provided a detailed framework for justice, encompassing everything from property rights and contracts to matters of family law and military service. The Hittite legal code was notable for its relatively progressive stance on issues such as the protection of women's rights, the regulation of trade, and the concept of restitution for crimes. This legal structure helped maintain order in the sprawling empire and contributed to the Hittites' ability to manage a diverse and multi-ethnic population. In addition to their legal innovations, the Hittites were also known for their advancements in technology and culture. They were pioneers in the use of iron, which they were the first to smelt and use extensively for weaponry, tools, and art. The Hittites' mastery of ironworking provided them with a significant military advantage, allowing them to create weapons that were stronger and more durable than those of their enemies. Their artistic achievements were also notable, with their distinctive architectural style and intricate stone carvings still visible at Hattusa. The Hittites were also skilled diplomats, forging important alliances with neighboring civilizations, including Egypt, through treaties and diplomatic marriages. One of the most famous treaties from this period is the Treaty of Kadesh, signed between the Hittite king Hattusili III and the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II after the Battle of Kadesh in 1274 BC. This treaty, which established a lasting peace between the two powers, is considered one of the earliest known examples of a peace agreement between two great powers. However, despite their remarkable achievements, the Hittites faced numerous challenges that would eventually lead to their downfall. One of the most significant factors in the decline of the Hittite Empire was the pressures of constant warfare. The Hittites were engaged in almost continuous conflict with their neighbors, including the Egyptians, Assyrians, and various people from the Eastern Mediterranean. These wars, along with the demands of maintaining an extensive empire, placed immense strain on the Hittite military and economy. The Battle of Kadesh, though a diplomatic victory, was one of the most costly conflicts in Hittite history, and the empire never fully recovered from its aftermath. Another contributing factor to the decline of the Hittite Empire was internal instability. As the empire expanded, it became increasingly difficult for the Hittite kings to maintain control over their vast territory. The Hittite Empire was a multi-ethnic and multicultural society, and as it grew, local rulers and nobles gained more autonomy. This decentralization of power weakened the central authority of the Hittite kings and made it harder to respond effectively to external threats. The kings of Hutti, the heart of the Hittite Empire, found it increasingly difficult to assert their authority over distant provinces, leading to internal rebellions and uprisings. In addition to military and political pressures, the Hittites faced a series of environmental challenges that may have contributed to their collapse. The Late Bronze Age, during which the Hittite Empire reached its height, was a period of significant climate change, marked by prolonged droughts and shifting weather patterns. The Mediterranean and Near Eastern regions experienced a series of natural disasters, including crop failures, famine, and disease, which had a profound impact on the agricultural economy of the Hittite Empire. The Hittites were heavily reliant on agriculture, and a disruption in the food supply would have had a devastating effect on their population and economy. Archaeological evidence suggests that the region around Hattusa experienced periods of drought, which would have strained the Hittites' already fragile infrastructure. By the 12th century BCE, the Hittite Empire was beginning to show signs of collapse. In addition to internal divisions and external threats, the Hittites were faced with the rise of new powers in the region, such as the Sea Peoples, an enigmatic group of marauding invaders who attacked various Mediterranean and Near Eastern civilizations. The Sea Peoples are believed to have played a significant role in the destabilization of the Hittite Empire as they attacked the Eastern Mediterranean and coastal regions, including the Hittite cities. These invasions, combined with internal rebellions and economic pressures, led to the gradual disintegration of the Hittite state. The fall of the Hittite Empire is often seen as part of a larger pattern of collapse that affected several ancient civilizations in the Late Bronze Age. The end of the Hittite Empire, along with the decline of other great powers such as Egypt and Mycenaean Greece, marks the end of an era in ancient history. The reasons for this widespread collapse remain debated, but scholars believe that a combination of military conflict, internal strife, economic decline, and environmental stress contributed to the fall of these once mighty civilizations. The Hittites, however, seem to have suffered particularly badly from these combined factors, and their capital, Hattusa, was eventually abandoned around 1200 BCE. The final years of the Hittite Empire were marked by a dramatic loss of power and territory. As their enemies advanced, the Hittites retreated into their core regions, where they faced further internal fragmentation. The once great cities of Hattusa and its surrounding settlements fell into disrepair. By the time the Assyrians began to dominate the region in the 9th century BCE, the Hittites had disappeared from the historical record. Hattusa itself was eventually left in ruins, with its once grand palaces, temples, and walls falling victim to time, neglect, and perhaps even violent destruction. Despite their disappearance from history, the legacy of the Hittites can still be seen today. The ruins of Hattusa, with its towering walls, impressive gates, and well-preserved inscriptions, offer a glimpse into the glory of the Hittite Empire. The Hittite legal code and their innovations in military technology, particularly their use of chariots and iron, influenced the civilizations that followed them. Additionally, their diplomatic achievements, particularly the Treaty of Kadesh, remain a landmark in the history of international relations. The mystery of the Hittite collapse continues to captivate historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts of ancient history. While the reasons for their downfall remain elusive, the story of the Hittites serves as a reminder that even the most powerful empires can fall, sometimes due to internal division, sometimes due to external pressures, and sometimes as the result of a complex interplay of factors that no single explanation can fully encompass. The Hittites may have vanished, but their legacy endures in the ruins of their cities, the records of their treaties, and the mysteries of their lost civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization, one of the oldest and most advanced ancient civilizations, thrived in the northwestern regions of the Indian subcontinent around 3,300 BCE to 1300 BCE. Its legacy, marked by vast cities, highly organized urban planning, and an advanced understanding of engineering and trade, continues to captivate historians and archaeologists today. Spanning the present-day territories of Pakistan, northwest India, and parts of Afghanistan, the civilization's heartland lay along the banks of the Indus River, a lifeline for the flourishing cities of Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and others that dotted the landscape. Despite its technological and cultural advancements, however, the Indus Valley Civilization mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind a wealth of questions that have yet to be fully answered. The rise of the Indus Valley Civilization was nothing short of remarkable. The civilization is believed to have developed as early as 3300 BCE, with its peak around 2500 BCE, during which time it grew to become one of the largest urban civilizations of the ancient world. It was a highly centralized and organized society with well-planned cities, impressive architectural feats, and a thriving economy based on trade, agriculture, and craftsmanship. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, in particular, are among the most notable sites from this civilization. These cities were characterized by their grid-like street layouts, sophisticated drainage systems, and large, multi-roomed houses made from standardized, kiln-fired bricks. The level of urban planning demonstrated by the Indus Valley people suggests that they had an exceptional understanding of engineering, sanitation, and the management of urban infrastructure. In terms of their economic system, the Indus Valley people were skilled in agriculture, cultivating crops like wheat, barley, and cotton. They also had a thriving trade network, engaging in long-distance trade with regions as far as Mesopotamia and the Arabian Peninsula. Artifacts such as seals and beads, which were often used as currency or for trade, have been found at Indus Valley sites, indicating the importance of commerce in their society. The civilization's economy was also supported by industries such as pottery, metallurgy, and textile production. They were skilled in making tools and weapons from copper, bronze, and other materials, and their artisans produced fine jewelry and decorative items. The Indus Valley Civilization also demonstrated considerable advancements in writing, though much of their script remains undeciphered to this day. The Indus script, which appears on seals, pottery, and tablets, has perplexed scholars for over a century. Unlike other ancient writing systems, such as those of Mesopotamia and Egypt, the Indus script has not been conclusively deciphered, making it difficult to fully understand the culture's history, religion, or governance. Nevertheless, the sheer volume of inscriptions suggests that writing played an important role in their daily life, perhaps for record-keeping, trade, or administrative purposes. Despite the obvious sophistication and prosperity of the Indus Valley civilization, its sudden decline and disappearance around 1300 BCE have long been a mystery. Unlike other ancient civilizations that collapsed due to invasions, natural disasters, or internal strife, the fall of the Indus Valley civilization was a more gradual process, and the reasons behind it remain speculative. Several theories have been proposed over the years, yet no definitive answer has been found. One of the leading theories is that the Indus Valley civilization's decline was caused by changes in the region's environment, particularly shifts in the climate. Some scholars suggest that a major climate shift, possibly a prolonged drought, could have significantly reduced the availability of water for irrigation and agriculture, making it difficult to sustain the population. The region's dependence on the monsoon rains, which were essential for their crops, may have led to catastrophic consequences when these rains became erratic or failed altogether. Evidence from sediment cores and ancient watercourses indicates that there was a period of reduced rainfall around the time the civilization began to decline. If these drought conditions were severe enough, they could have led to crop failures, water shortages, and a general breakdown of the agricultural base of society, ultimately driving people away from the urban centers. The decline of the Indus Valley civilization may have been compounded by changes in the course of the Indus River itself. The river, which was central to the civilization's success, may have shifted its course over time, leading to flooding or the drying up of vital water sources. Archaeological evidence suggests that some of the ancient settlements, particularly in the lower Indus Valley, show signs of having been abandoned due to changes in the river's flow. When the river shifted or became unreliable, it could have resulted in the loss of agricultural land and trade routes, causing the cities to deteriorate and forcing the population to relocate. Another possible explanation for the decline of the Indus Valley civilization is invasion or conflict. Some scholars have suggested that the civilization fell victim to invasions by outside forces, such as the Indo-Aryans, who are believed to have migrated into the Indian subcontinent around the same time. The theory of an Aryan invasion has been a topic of much debate and controversy, and there is little direct evidence to support it. However, some argue that the arrival of the Indo-Aryans, who may have introduced new technologies, cultural practices, and even a new language, could have disrupted the existing social and political order in the Indus Valley. However, evidence of violent conflict or military conquest is largely absent from the archaeological record of the Indus Valley civilization. The absence of large-scale fortifications or weapons in most of the Indus cities suggests that military conflict was not a primary factor in the civilization's collapse. Unlike other ancient cultures that left behind evidence of wars and conquests, the Indus Valley civilization seems to have been largely peaceful, relying on trade and diplomacy rather than military might. This lack of evidence points to the possibility that internal factors, such as environmental stress, social disruption, or economic collapse, were more significant in the downfall of the civilization. In addition to these external pressures, some researchers suggest that the decline of the Indus Valley civilization could have been due to internal social and economic factors. As the cities of the Indus Valley grew larger and more complex, there may have been increasing social stratification and economic inequality. Some scholars propose that the urban centers became overcrowded, leading to shortages of resources and tensions between different social classes. This could have resulted in internal divisions, causing the social fabric of the civilization to unravel. Alternatively, the collapse of the centralized governance, possibly due to changes in leadership or the breakdown of trade networks, could have led to the decline of the cities. Despite the various theories, the precise cause of the Indus Valley civilization's fall remains elusive. It is likely that a combination of factors, environmental, social, and economic, contributed to the gradual abandonment of the cities and the collapse of the once flourishing civilization. What remains clear, however, is that the civilization did not disappear overnight. Instead, it slowly fragmented, with people leaving the urban centers and resettling in smaller villages or migrating to new areas in search of more stable environments. Today, the remains of the Indus Valley civilization stand as silent witnesses to a lost world, offering glimpses of a people who achieved remarkable feats of urban planning, trade, and culture. Yet the unanswered questions surrounding the civilization's demise continue to fascinate researchers and laypeople alike. The ruins of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa remain some of the most important archaeological sites in the world, where scholars continue to uncover artifacts that offer insights into the daily life of the Indus people. Though their writing system remains undeciphered and much about their culture remains a mystery, the legacy of the Indus Valley Civilization is undeniable. The disappearance of the Indus Valley Civilization serves as a stark reminder of the impermanence of even the most advanced societies. Despite their incredible achievements, the people of the Indus Valley were ultimately unable to overcome the environmental, social, and economic forces that led to their decline. Their story is one of resilience, innovation, and adaptation, yet also a cautionary tale about how even the most sophisticated civilizations can fade away, leaving behind only remnants of their former greatness. The Maya civilization, one of the most advanced and mysterious cultures of pre-Columbian America, thrived for over 2 millennia, leaving behind monumental cities, intricate hieroglyphic writing, and a deep understanding of astronomy. Spanning modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, the Maya were known for their highly developed society, with impressive urban centers, complex social structures, and sophisticated systems of agriculture and trade. Yet, despite their remarkable achievements, the Maya civilization experienced a dramatic collapse around the end of the 9th century CE, leading to the abandonment of their once glorious cities and the near-total disappearance of their cultural and political power. The reasons for this collapse have been the subject of intense debate and intrigue for centuries, with scholars offering a variety of explanations that range from environmental disaster to political instability, warfare, and even spiritual crisis. At the height of their civilization, the Maya built sprawling cities with monumental temples, palaces, and plazas, which became centers of religious, political, and economic life. The most famous Maya cities, such as Tikal, Palenque, and Copan, were characterized by their massive pyramids, intricate carvings, and advanced engineering feats, such as sophisticated water management systems and the construction of causeways connecting various urban centers. These cities were not only impressive architectural achievements, but also served as hubs for trade, agriculture, and intellectual pursuits. The Maya had a highly organized society with a complex class system, and they were led by powerful kings or Ajah who ruled over the various city-states that made up the Maya world. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Maya civilization was their writing system. The Maya developed a complex system of hieroglyphs, which combined ideographic and phonetic symbols to represent their language. This writing system was used to record important historical events, genealogies, and religious texts, many of which have been preserved on stone monuments and codices made from bark paper. The Maya were also exceptional astronomers, developing a highly accurate calendar system that was based on both the solar and lunar cycles. Their long count calendar, in particular, was capable of tracking time over vast periods, and the Maya were able to predict celestial events, such as eclipses and planetary alignments, with remarkable precision. In addition to their scientific achievements, the Maya were skilled farmers who practiced a form of agriculture known as slash and burn, which involved clearing land for cultivation and then rotating crops to maintain soil fertility. They grew a wide variety of crops, including maize, corn, beans, squash, and cacao, and their agricultural surplus supported the growth of their urban centers. The Maya also engaged in long-distance trade, exchanging goods such as jade, obsidian, feathers, and textiles with neighboring civilizations and distant cultures, including the Teotihuacan civilization of central Mexico and the Olmecs. This trade network helped to sustain their economy and foster cultural exchange between the Maya and other Mesoamerican peoples. However, despite their many achievements, the Maya civilization experienced a dramatic decline that began in the 8th century and culminated in the abandonment of many of their cities by the end of the 9th century. The reasons for this collapse remain one of the most enduring mysteries in ancient history. Theories abound, but no single cause has been definitively proven. What is clear is that the collapse was not a singular event, but rather a complex and multifaceted process that unfolded over several centuries. One of the most widely discussed explanations for the Maya collapse is environmental degradation. The Maya civilization was heavily dependent on agriculture, and as the population grew, so too did the demand for land to cultivate crops. Over time, this pressure on the environment may have led to deforestation, soil erosion, and the depletion of natural resources. Archaeological evidence suggests that many Maya cities were built in areas that were not ideal for agriculture, and the intensive farming practices that supported these cities may have contributed to the degradation of the land. As soil fertility declined, crop yields would have diminished, leading to food shortages and social unrest. The Maya also relied on complex systems of water management, including reservoirs and canals, to support their cities, and these systems may have been overtaxed as populations grew and droughts became more frequent. Another major factor in the collapse of the Maya civilization was the shifting climate. Studies of ancient climate data, such as tree rings and sediment cores, have revealed evidence of prolonged droughts in the region during the period of the Maya collapse. These droughts, which may have lasted for decades, would have had a devastating impact on the Maya cities, which relied heavily on rain-fed agriculture and water storage systems. The reduced availability of water would have exacerbated the effects of soil degradation and crop failure, making it increasingly difficult for the Maya to sustain their cities. The combination of environmental stress, water shortages, and agricultural decline could have led to widespread famine, population decline, and the eventual abandonment of many major cities. While environmental factors likely played a significant role in the collapse of the Maya civilization, political and social factors must also be considered. The Maya civilization was made up of numerous city-states, each with its own ruler and political structure. These city-states were often engaged in warfare with one another, and competition for resources, territory, and prestige may have led to internal conflict. The political fragmentation of the Maya world could have weakened the unity of the civilization and made it more vulnerable to external pressures, such as environmental change. Some scholars suggest that the collapse of the Maya civilization was a result of political instability, with city-states turning against each other in a desperate bid for survival. The role of warfare in the decline of the Maya civilization is a topic of ongoing debate. Evidence of violent conflict, including fortified city walls, weapons, and depictions of battles in Maya art, suggests that warfare was a significant aspect of Maya society. Some scholars argue that the increasing militarization of the Maya world, particularly in the Classic period, may have contributed to the collapse of the civilization. As city-states engaged in more frequent and destructive wars, resources may have been diverted from other critical areas, such as agriculture and infrastructure. The stresses of constant warfare, combined with environmental pressures, could have led to the destabilization of Maya society and the eventual collapse of the major cities. Religion and spiritual crisis may have also played a role in the Maya collapse. The Maya believed that the world was governed by cycles of creation and destruction, and their rulers were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people. As the political and environmental situation deteriorated, it is possible that the Maya began to lose faith in their rulers' ability to maintain cosmic order and protect their cities. This spiritual crisis may have undermined the legitimacy of the ruling class and led to a loss of social cohesion. The abandonment of ceremonial centers, the decline of monumental building projects, and the end of long-distance trade could all be seen as signs of a cultural and spiritual disintegration within the Maya world. The abandonment of the great Maya cities at the end of the 9th century marked the end of the Classic period of Maya civilization. However, the Maya did not vanish entirely. While many of the major cities were abandoned, the civilization continued to exist in the northern Yucatan Peninsula and other areas, where it eventually gave rise to the post-classic Maya civilization. The city of Chichen Itza, one of the most famous Maya sites, became a major power in the post-classic period, and the Maya continued to maintain their cultural traditions, including their calendar, writing system, and religious practices, well into the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century. Today, the ruins of the Maya cities, such as Tikal, Palenque, and Copan, stand as silent witnesses to the grandeur of this once great civilization. The mysteries surrounding their collapse continue to captivate archaeologists and historians, and ongoing excavations and studies of Maya sites are gradually shedding light on the reasons behind their decline. Whether driven by environmental change, political instability, warfare, or spiritual crisis, the collapse of the Maya civilization serves as a reminder of the fragility of even the most advanced societies. It is a story of human ambition, resilience, and ultimately, the forces of nature and history that shape the rise and fall of civilizations. The ancestral Puebloans, known for their cliff dwellings and distinctive culture, were one of the most intriguing civilizations of the American Southwest. Flourishing for over 1,000 years, their story is a testament to resilience, adaptation, and remarkable architectural and social achievements. From around 500 CE to 1300 CE, the ancestral Puebloans built vast, complex societies in the arid deserts of modern-day New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah. Their primary settlements were located in the Four Corners region, where the states of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona meet. The civilization reached its peak during the 11th and 12th centuries, marked by impressive feats of architecture and engineering, including the iconic cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde and the monumental stone structures at Chaco Canyon. Yet, by the late 13th century, this thriving civilization seemed to have vanished, leaving behind unanswered questions that have captivated archaeologists and historians ever since. The ancestral Puebloans were not a single, unified empire, but rather a group of distinct yet culturally similar peoples who shared a common heritage. Their societies were built around a complex system of agriculture, trade, and spiritual beliefs. The ancestral Puebloans were farmers who cultivated crops such as corn, beans, squash, and cotton, all of which were integral to their diet and economy. Their agricultural methods were highly sophisticated, with elaborate irrigation systems, terracing, and floodplain farming that allowed them to thrive in an otherwise harsh and dry environment. They also gathered wild plants and hunted game, such as deer and rabbits, supplementing their agricultural production. One of the most distinctive features of ancestral Puebloan culture was their architectural ingenuity. Over time, their dwellings evolved from simple pit houses, underground homes, into more complex structures, including multi-story buildings made from stone, adobe, and wood. The most famous examples of ancestral Puebloan architecture are the cliff dwellings that were constructed in the steep canyon walls of places like Mesa Verde, Bandelier, and Cliff Palace. These dwellings were not only strategically placed for defense, but also designed to blend seamlessly into the natural landscape, utilizing the environment to offer protection from both the elements and potential invaders. The cliff dwellings are a testament to the Puebloans' architectural skill and their deep understanding of the terrain, and they stand as some of the most iconic and enduring symbols of Native American ingenuity. In addition to their impressive architecture, the ancestral Puebloans developed a rich spiritual and cultural life. Their religion was centered around a pantheon of gods and spirits associated with nature, including deities linked to rain, agriculture, and the cycles of life and death. The Puebloans constructed ceremonial kivas, circular, underground chambers used for religious rites and community gatherings in their communities. These sacred spaces were an important part of their religious and social life, serving as places for ritual, storytelling, and decision-making. The rituals performed in the kivas often involved intricate dances, songs, and prayers intended to ensure the fertility of crops and the well-being of the community. The importance of water and rain was especially significant to the Puebloans, as their agricultural economy relied on the availability of water, and their ceremonies often sought to invoke the blessings of the gods for rain. Trade also played an important role in ancestral Puebloan society. The ancestral Puebloans were part of an extensive trade network that connected them to other Native American groups across the Southwest and beyond. They traded a variety of goods, including turquoise, pottery, textiles, and foodstuffs. This network allowed them to acquire goods that were not available in their local area, such as shell ornaments, macaw feathers, and even copper tools. Trade was not only an economic activity, but also a way to establish and maintain relationships between different communities, facilitating cultural exchange and cooperation. Despite their sophisticated culture and way of life, the ancestral Puebloans began to experience significant challenges by the late 12th century, and by the end of the 13th century, many of their large, impressive settlements were abandoned. The reasons for this sudden collapse are still a subject of intense debate among archaeologists, with no single cause offering a definitive explanation. Several theories have been proposed, suggesting that a combination of factors may have contributed to the decline of the ancestral Puebloans. One of the most widely accepted explanations for the decline of the ancestral Puebloans is climate change. The Southwest is known for its harsh, dry climate, and the ancestral Puebloans were heavily dependent on rainfall for their agricultural production. Evidence suggests that, during the 12th and 13th centuries, the region experienced prolonged droughts, which would have had a devastating impact on their ability to grow crops and sustain their communities. The collapse of the agricultural base could have led to food shortages, which would have put immense pressure on the social and political systems of the Puebloans. Droughts would also have affected the availability of water for drinking and daily activities, exacerbating the hardships faced by the communities. In addition to drought, some scholars suggest that the overuse of land and natural resources may have contributed to the collapse. The ancestral Puebloans engaged in large-scale farming, and as their populations grew, they required more land to cultivate crops. Over time, this expansion may have led to soil depletion, erosion, and the exhaustion of local water sources. The environmental strain, combined with the challenges posed by the changing climate, could have made it increasingly difficult for the Puebloans to maintain their settlements, leading some communities to abandon their homes in search of more sustainable resources elsewhere. Social and political factors may have also played a role in the collapse of the ancestral Puebloans. Archaeological evidence suggests that, toward the end of the 12th century, there was an increase in conflict and violence between different groups of Puebloans. The growing pressures of food scarcity and resource depletion may have exacerbated tensions, leading to competition for water and arable land. The breakdown of social cohesion could have undermined the stability of the communities and led to internal strife. In some cases, the construction of defensive structures, such as fortified dwellings, indicates that the Puebloans may have been engaged in warfare or at least in heightened efforts to protect themselves from neighboring groups. Furthermore, the disruption of long-distance trade networks may have added to the collapse. The ancestral Puebloans were reliant on trade for acquiring resources that were not locally available, such as obsidian, turquoise, and exotic goods. The disruption of these trade routes, possibly due to political instability or environmental factors, could have further isolated the Puebloans and contributed to their decline. Despite the challenges, the ancestral Puebloans did not disappear completely. While many of their major settlements were abandoned, some of their descendants continued to live in the region, migrating to more arable areas, such as the Rio Grande Valley in New Mexico. The Pueblo people, as they are known today, are direct descendants of the ancestral Puebloans and continue to live in the Southwest, preserving many aspects of their cultural heritage, including their agricultural practices, pottery, and religious traditions. Modern Pueblo communities, such as those in Taos, Acoma, and Zuni, maintain a deep connection to their ancestral past and continue to honor the spiritual and cultural practices that have been passed down through generations. The mystery of the ancestral Puebloans' collapse remains one of the most compelling stories in North American history. Their achievements in agriculture, architecture, and trade, as well as their complex social and religious structures, were remarkable for their time. Yet, the sudden disappearance of their civilization in the 13th century raises important questions about the fragility of human societies when faced with environmental stress, social upheaval, and resource depletion. As archaeologists continue to study the ruins of Mesa Verde, Chaco Canyon, and other ancestral Puebloan sites, the full story of their rise and fall remains tantalizingly out of reach. Nevertheless, their legacy endures in the modern Pueblo peoples, whose traditions and stories offer a living connection to a once great civilization that continues to capture the imagination of people around the world.